Jules, you looked at me like I was insane. 2 hands to the back. Look, again, I'm not making excuses for Romero because you literally, you're supposed to be the defensive leader, the best defender. You're facing, I'm guessing, and we can debate whether Gabriel's better in the air as an attacking threat than Havertz. I think it's close, but Gabriel scored by a ton of goals, right? So your job is to mark him in that structure. It's a hybrid defensive system that they have, but you are the one-on-one with Gabriel. One thing that you don't do is turn your back to him as the ball goes in, right? Now that said, we clearly see 2 hands to his back. And whether you're using the hands for leverage or whatever, it's not a great thing to do. There are some referees that will call a foul straight away for that.
I don't think anymore. I think it's a very minimal push. I can't remember. You said we've seen it. We've seen those kind of goals.
It's a minimal push, but if he collapses,
I don't think so. He can't collapse, Gabi.
Why not?
Because it's not hard. The push is not hard enough for him to go down. That's why he's not going down.
He could use the whole usual excuse. Oh, but it unbalanced me. I was jumping, whatever.
He was not jumping though. There was just a contact in the box. Like there's contacts all the time on set pieces.
There are many all I'm saying is in the age of VAR, 2 hands to the back.
I don't think so.
Is not like hand checking with one hand.
But then VAR would have called it and they would have cancelled it.
Yeah, because VAR gets everything right all the time.
I could not disagree more with you. And we saw at Newcastle last season where Arsenal felt really aggrieved on Gabriel on that goal, and that was not given either. And that was very different to what we saw yesterday, where it's just there was one in the first half, Timber and Brennan Johnson in the far post on a corner on a cross, I think, from Maddison. And same, Timber is kind of holding on to Brennan Johnson. This is not enough to give a penalty. Like it's not enough for it's not even a push for the 2 hands on Gabriel on the back of Romero to cancel that goal. I think
holding is slightly different, and like personally,
it's exactly the same. Then you prevent the player from doing anything.
It's not exactly the same, and I'll tell you why. Right? A lot of times with holding, there is reciprocal holding. There's 2 people who are holding each other, right? Personally, I think a lot more of that should be sanctioned with VAR. And I think they should give more penalties for that.
It's also a contact. It's a contact sport too. Still,
contact does not mean hold, right?
Yeah, but you put your body in front of somebody, you can't move. This is it. You're not going to give a penalty for that. In the same way that when you're defending on someone on a corner, you can't just
there's a difference between
touch each other all the time.
There's a difference between standing there. Holding means you are grabbing their shirt or you're hooking their arms, right? That's a completely different. I personally think they could be even tougher on that. I don't think there's any kind of basis of the sport. It's got nothing to do with the contact sport. The push, I think obviously you have to be smart about. All I'm saying is you're putting yourself at risk. And Arsenal now going into the Champions League, and in those games you have to be mindful of that. You can have the same effect to create distance. He's a big, strong boy. Maybe with one hand, so it looks more like a hand check or whatever. And some defenders are very good at making it seem as if it was a lot harder push. It's actually difficult, I think, to judge a push on video. So that is all I'm saying. Beyond that, I think the way Spurs played, while they did have their chances early, getting back to the game, I agree with you. There is so much sterile possession. And look, Arsenal... they put on their hard hats and they defended. Martinelli hasn't always impressed me in the past off the ball. I thought he did a lot of defensive work, which I wasn't expecting. Saka also, but we expected that.
Yeah.
And so, look, I'm not saying it's easy to break people down, but you expect something more than James Maddison in a line of 6 guys spread right to left, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought was disappointing. And we've said it before, this is nothing new on Spurs' limitations, really. Set pieces, it happens time and time again. Postecoglou doesn't want a set-piece coach. For me, he's not sorting out any of the issues from Vicario to the marking, to the organization as a whole in defensive set pieces. So this will keep happening this season. And with the ball, you can't just... So the plan A, I understand, is to commit a lot of bodies forward and a lot of chaos and press high and intensity. Okay, but if that doesn't work, what else do you have? All they did for the last half hour after the Gabriel goal was crossing the ball in the box, where you often only had Solanke on his own, maybe somebody else with him, against Gabriel and Saliba, who are probably the 2 best defenders to defend crosses. Yeah, it made no sense whatsoever.
And I think even if you had other people in there, again, Solanke big, strong boy, but you don't have too many other, unless you bring up one of the center backs, which I guess is why Romero wandered up at the end. It's not like Son is a major aerial threat. It's not like Brennan Johnson's a major. Kulusevski's tall, but he's not a tremendous header of the ball either. That's the part, maybe Richarlison might have done something. I did wonder why, instead of those crosses and shots from distance, if you have all those people forward, maybe the thing is take more people on, right? Kulusevski can dribble. If you've got your players back, you're not scared of you're not that scared of the counterattack. See if you can draw a foul. See if you can beat a man and then deliver a cross. Once you have that, once you have the defense destabilized because you've created an overload, right? I'm not saying these are great, but since you don't have the patterns of play, and that is one of the big differences, for example, with City, who, if you want, a few years ago, used to commit a ton of people, and they still do sometimes, commit a ton of people forward. You have the 1-2s to set up the cutback and whatnot. How many of those crosses were cutbacks? None.
No.
1, 2.
I mean, because they just have a plan A, so there's just no plan B. There's nothing else for them to offer. I don't think they work on anything else. So your two fullbacks come inside all the time. There are hardly no overlaps for fullbacks, which I think would do something different, and then would ask questions to the opposition and the way they've been defended, because there's a point where, okay, the first 10-15 minutes were okay, we're good. After that, it was so easy for Arsenal to work out what Spurs would do. Porro used to do always the same. Udogie on the other side, always the same. Solanke and Kulusevski in the center would Maddison. It was just so predictable. The whole thing from Spurs after the first 15 minutes was just so predictable. There was just no movement into the half space, or not enough. Certainly not on the left, a little bit on the right. What was Son doing? And what was Son's position for the last half hour? What was Ange thinking when he made those changes? Sarr, Odobert, Timo Werner, apart from just, you know what? Who do I have on the bench who can attack? Okay, let's chuck them in. Well, Son was completely lost. You have your best player is one of the best players in Europe, and then you give him almost no position for 30 minutes in a game like this. I was just so disappointed by Postecoglou.
I think Ange would say that he puts a lot of faith in the players and in their instincts. And Odobert and Werner are on because they're good at running at opponents, right? Taking them on. No, which Odobert did a little bit. Werner hardly did because he didn't have any space, right?
You don't play a game like this with instinct. You have to give your players some guidance, a structure. This is not five-a-side on a Tuesday night like I play. This is a serious stuff. You can't just not tell your players where they play. And Son was completely lost in the last half hour. It just didn't make any sense. I just don't understand.
I think he's threading a fine needle, but I agree with you. This feels really one-dimensional, and it's not just a defeat. Look, they could have scored. I don't think it would have been the Kulusevski chance early. There were other they had chances in the course of the game, right? But it feels like the opposite of what you were describing what he described as controlling the game. It felt like they were not controlling the game. It felt like they were seeing what stuck, and we can often get that impression when the other team just sits, and which is what Arsenal did for a lot of the game, right? But equally, you expect a twist. You expect something other than just, let me wait for this talented player to do something special. Because yes, Kulusevski can do it, Maddison can do it, Brennan Johnson's fast, whatever, Son can certainly do it. But you can't just rely on it happening out of the blue. No. You create conditions for it to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And the control thing, I think, is a really interesting point, because Arteta would say that they controlled the game too, because they had Spurs in front of them. They were deep like they wanted. They were very well drilled and well organized, as we've been saying. So a team can have 70% of the ball, and that doesn't mean you control the game. Yeah, you have the ball, so in a way you control the ball. But if you do nothing with it, the team that is defending also is controlling the game. So there's control out of position as well. Out of possession, sorry. So it was just quite interesting to see Ange saying, we played in the half, we had the ball, we had control. And in the end, Arsenal and Arteta and the players, certainly the ones I saw after the game, felt like we had them exactly where we wanted. They didn't create anything. We controlled the game the way we wanted, even without the ball.
So this is the classic thing to sort of broaden this out. There are some teams and some players who enjoy not having the ball. Some defenders who are very comfortable saying, like, here, you have all this possession. I'm going to limit your chances. And obviously, and this was a difference, when you talk about Juventus in their heyday, when Bonucci and Barzagli and that Chiellini fella were at their best, they'd be happy to let you have the ball and play in their half, knowing that you were never going to get off a good chance, right? Yeah. They were very comfortable with that. Other teams, when they're like that, other teams want to play in the other half because, you're in our half, something could happen. They get a little bit nervous, a little bit frantic. I think Gabriel and Saliba are coming to that point where they are that comfortable. This back four, as a group, is getting there. I would say more the two center backs, especially Gabriel, who I think has improved a lot in that sense. More so than Timber's only had a couple games, but that is another big step forward. And remember, also happening without the Declan Rice in front of them too, which is final word. Shout out to my boy Georgie. Yeah, all the haters. He's too weak. The man hasn't played since the middle of June. Yeah. Steps into starting lineup for North London Derby, and does his thing.
No. It was, considering all the players missing, I thought it was a really good performance from Arsenal overall.